Good afternoon, everyone. We are very happy to see you again today, and welcome to this third episode of our fourth season. And today I'm really happy to receive Laura MacDonald, the CEO of ASTP, the Association of European Science and Technology Transfer Professionals. She kindly accepted our invitation to come and discuss the knowledge transfer communities and their activities and how they can complement or stimulate our ENRIITC activities. But before we dive into our topic, I would like to invite you to grab your cup or smile for the traditional group picture, and turn on your cameras for those who don't have them on. So get ready.
Yes. Now, let me 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
So Laura, I give you the floor.
Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. This is really nice. I know it would be better in person, but I must say I'm so happy that all these webinars and digital meetings allow us, I think, to do many more things like this in our day. So, and I love your Enrich Your Coffee series. As you will see in one of my slides I refer to at ASTP, we have tea. I'm not quite sure whether it's because some of us at HQ are British, we had the tea rather than coffee, but I don't know, we took the tea from ASTP, so that's what we have. And we have virtual teacups and teapots with our logo, but anyway. Okay, so lovely. Let me share my screen and say, first of all, thank you for inviting me. I have the privilege and pleasure of meeting certainly the community driving the ENRIITC project. I was at the launch meeting last year, all these months ago, and it's a fabulous project, and we're really happy that if the ASTP community, if we can get involved, we can help, we can do things together. I think there's some crossover of the community in terms of the activities and the kinds of things that we do. So the slides I'm going to share, which you all have access to, of course, afterwards, are a little bit setting the scene as to who ASTP is. But what I wanted to do, as Anne-Charlotte said, is really just share with you some of the things that we do. We are a members association, but we operate on two levels. We do things for and with our members, but actually we also do a whole lot of things which are absolutely wide open for everybody, whether you're a member or not. So I just wanted to share with you some of the things that we do and have done, and how they've evolved, just to see whether there might be either some things that you guys are already doing, or you might want to think about starting yourselves within the ENRIITC community. But also, of course, there's an open invitation to think what we can do together, maybe as the ASTP community with the ENRIITC community. Maybe there are some things we can do together, or you can just jump in and join any of our ASTP things. So all things are possible. So I have a few slides I want to share, but I really would like to maybe also chat and discuss with you. So let me share my screen, hopefully working well. And we'll take it from there. So this is, I hope, yes. So, okay, opening slide, you all know who we are now that we've been introduced. So very quickly, we are, a little summary there, we are a community now of about 1,200 members, I think. ASTP has been running for over 20 years. I think we started in 1999. So, and essentially, it's a networking community of people whose key function and role is to act as that catalyst between the research activity in research universities, in research centres, also research and industry, with the outside world. And I think most of the partnering that our people are driving tends to be the public-private partnerships. But so it can be about technology transfer, it can also be about upstream research alliances. So it's rather a broad section of these relationships, and the membership are all people who try to connect what are effectively different worlds. And I know this kind of overlaps very well with a lot of what the ambition of the ENRIITC project is all about, to bring organizations to share and access expertise and infrastructure. So it's all about partnering. We do a different range of things. I'll not spend too much time on it, but one of the things we do as a community is very much try to network and share our experiences. And we have developed over the years training courses, we do masterclasses and things like that. So we are very much about sharing expertise and fast tracking kind of the problem solving and challenges of trying to achieve the objectives that our institutions and our regions, or even the EU, would like us to do as an ecosystem, as an innovation ecosystem. We also have an accreditation relationship We think it's important that this kind of functioning, we call it knowledge transfer, knowledge exchange, there's no single word, technology transfer. It should be a recognized profession, and we're very interested in driving that forward. And we also have a very international dimension in the sense that although there are many national associations, member associations of the knowledge transfer sector, we actually have a network of, including representatives of all of these national associations broadly across Europe, but a little bit further afield as well. And we call that, you'll see on the screen, the NAC. So we actually have a very interesting discussion, dialogue and debate and relationship with the national knowledge transfer, technology transfer associations. And they can help drive a lot of the things that we do for the members and with the members. So it's a very nice dynamic on that level. This is just a slide summarizing some of our level of activities, just to give you an idea. Annual conference, training courses. We do customized trainings. People want us to come and deliver training courses, and we now do it all online. I don't know about your experience. Clearly, Enrich with Coffee is one digital experience, but we've had to convert everything since last year to online, and we've been amazed at the willingness and success, both of the presenters to adapt and deliver everything, but actually I think the audiences, so I look forward to your own experiences, because I think as we go forward, we think this digital world will certainly stay, and so we should make the most of these opportunities. One of the other things we do, which might be interesting, is we try to collect data about knowledge transfer activities. So we also have an annual survey, links to there. So that's what we do. So essentially though, from the very beginning, we've been about trying to establish a very much transnational, primarily pan-European connected community. So basically most of the organizations where there is membership are active in Europe. So they're either a university research center or industry player partnering with others operating in Europe. And interestingly, that has meant that we actually also have quite some interest in membership and activity with participants outside Europe. So basically those in the US or the Middle East or Africa or the Far East who have business and connections and relationships in Europe have also found it useful and interesting to jump into our community. And I'm sure some of the infrastructure centres that you all represent have that experience as well. So although we are very much focused on the doing of business and connecting in Europe, it's all about the global world that we all actually serve. We have some activities and areas. We have a website, obviously, and one of the things that we tried to do when we relaunched it last year was to make sure that there was at least the opportunity, not knowing at the time of planning all of this just how digital our lives would become, but one of the things we wanted to do was have a section where members could do many more things directly with one another, sharing documents, access materials and so on, and communicate. So, and to our surprise, we find that's been quite an active thing. So websites seem to be not so much a thing of the past or just a shop window to what's going on. It is turning out to be a space where people do communicate. And one of the things I want to talk about is our special interest groups. So I'll flip to that in a moment. We also try to compile resources and materials and information and all sorts of things, both our own that have been generated by our own members, but also to try and act as a link to help people easily find the vast wealth of knowledge transfer materials and courses and all sorts of things, and reports and podcasts and webinars, etc., that other people have put together. So this is very much a work in progress, but we're optimistic that we can make this even more useful for our members. So as well as training conferences, we also have some special activities, or let's call them member-focused activities, that might be also interesting to think about. Although in a moment I'm going to switch and give you some more detailed insight into what I think is one of our most exciting and really interactive communities, and these are our special interest groups. But this is just a slide that gives you a bit of an overview of the range of things that we also get involved in, our members get involved in. I'm based at HQ. I work full-time for ASTP as the CEO, and I have a team of 8 or 9 colleagues, and we're based in the Netherlands. But essentially, this is a membership community driven by the members who are essentially volunteers. We have various committees and a board and everything, but it's very much the community that drives, and as much as possible we at HQ, as I'll explain a little bit further, try to support and facilitate all of these things. So I think we're very fortunate that we have that kind of dynamic with a very interesting community. I mean, 1,200 individual members is a lot of people. Needless to say, it's a subset that are most active, but it's also very much a subset that changes. We're finding a lot of interest. I don't know how you find it, but this whole area is it seems to be growing interest. So we have a lot of people joining the knowledge transfer profession. It's, in my experience, it's always at least a second career. So people come with their science or their business backgrounds and join us. What I would like to think about here with you guys is the InterCommunity Connectivity. I think I said at the very start, we do a lot of things as a members community. And so we have, as I mentioned, the members area of the website. We've got special tea with the ASTP webinars, which by and large, mostly, we started them last year and they're twice a month. And they're primarily 1 hour webinars for the members to contribute to and participate in. And we also facilitate as HQ all sorts of online events, discussions, presentations, socializing. We had a Christmas party. We quite like to have parties. They don't always work terribly well online, but these are, I don't know, your experience, I'd be glad to hear, but we have found a really lovely platform that enables all sorts of socializing to happen digitally. But we also have this calling it extra community connectivity. So we really are visible and looking to promote the issues and themes to enable people to connect. We have newsletters for everybody. We do all sorts of social media. We have lots of open online events and again, strategic alliances. Special interest groups, though, let me spend a couple of moments in discussing them and just seeing whether this might be something, you know, from what I know of the ENRIITC community, it's obviously very diverse, very large, both geographically and also in numbers of people. And so maybe one of the models that might be interesting for you to think about is, if you don't already have an equivalent, are these special interest groups. I've just listed there a few of the most dynamic ones, and these are communities within our membership who have found each other because they have a shared set of experiences and or challenges, and they really want to speak to other people who are doing something very similar. Now, it can be on a short-term basis, like let's create a special interest group to solve a particular problem, or let's create a community, bring them together where they can actually do all sorts of things on an ongoing basis. And this is kind of our range. We have a community that looks at digital innovations, clinical innovations, in-house legal, the new people joining profession, social sciences also, very interesting, very, very important and growing dynamic SIG for the last 5 years. What does it actually mean we do? Volunteer-led, this is the digital innovations as a prime example of the kind of things that they do. We at HQ host and support their events, which obviously are digital at the moment, monthly webinars, but we also support face-to-face activities. Usually at least twice a year, there will be an open session hosted and driven by the SIG members, which is open to anybody and everybody who's coming along to a particular event to join in. They can connect on a special subset of the website. So there's a SIG digital innovation area. What they've done, though, is very interesting. They have identified initially 3 particular areas where there's a lot of development, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of growing experience willing to share, to develop. And what they did was they kind of divided themselves with 3, let's call them leaders of the special interest group, each taking responsibility for driving activities under one of the following 3 areas. They were particularly interested to share information on commercial deals, models, because the whole challenge, what exactly falls under the umbrella of digital innovations? It's everything from traditional software to databases to even big data, etc. And I think for people involved in trying to build collaborative partnerships where digital innovation is a likely outcome, it can be challenging to know how to manage the expectations of the partners. Very often it's in a consortium. Sometimes it's just bilateral arrangements, but it's really important to understand what should there be commercial terms around any of the access and future use of digital innovations. So there's a subset that are developing models and willing to share these. There's one group which is much more focusing on, I've called it IPR issues. Essentially, it's around questions initially to understand the relationship between the patenting world and digital innovations. And then we have a third group, which are really the in-house legal people, generally speaking, who are very happy to share the legal terms and agreements, because clearly a lot of very specific terminology and clauses and such like perhaps need to be included in the collaboration agreements or the license agreements. So they've all come together. They do monthly webinars, either only themselves, or sometimes we'll have guest speakers. They even launched and ran a little internal survey on licensing activity, for example. They just wanted to scope out things. And so this is a very clear example of the kind of subset of people who come together, and as I say, we support them from an HQ perspective, and it's really interesting. They will do things as a community in the SIG, but if there are outputs that might make sense to share with the wider membership or even further afield, then that's also possible. And so I really just wanted to share this a little bit with you. So I just wanted to come back to this to see it as food for thought for yourselves, that we do some of these things, the special interest groups I just talked about with the ASTP, online events and so on. But I'm also interested to come back to this idea that are there things that you as the ENRIITC community would like to get involved in as the ASTP interest side or mirror? I think this was a kind of critical slide to kick off some discussion. Maybe some of these things that we do, you are already doing or would like to learn more about, happy to share. You'd be more than welcome. We can explore. We already have done, I think, a little bit with and Charlotte and others as are the things that we could collaborate on. Would you also like to just be aware of some of the things that we do? We have a very open newsletter which covers all sorts of things that you'd be most welcome to join. So as I said at the start, for those who were on the very opening of this session, this is certainly not an advert. I'm not trying to promote membership of ASTP per se, but at the same time, I think there are a lot of things that, you know, we'd be delighted to have more of you get involved in and or share. So I am completely open. Love to hear your thoughts and questions, and maybe stop talking now and let the floor open and hear what people might have to say or ask about. So I'm going to stop sharing if that's okay, and open to questions or discussion, and let's take it from there.
Thank you very much, Laura. This is very interesting, and thanks a lot for your enthusiastic presentation. I might have questions, but if people have any comments or questions, please raise your hands or just take the floor. I invite you also to turn on your camera so we can see your faces. We're quite few today, so I don't know if it's because of all these deadlines at the Commission.
I know, September is my favorite month, right?
So everybody's busy preparing the applications. But yeah, is there any questions for Laura? Or maybe I can kick the... Pirette?
A really great presentation. Thank you, Laura. One question that I have was, you mentioned all those special interest groups. So, for example, digital solutions or clinical trials. So when, let's say, there is an issue in clinical trials, but it is referring to a digital solution in a clinical trial. So would you say those interest groups are based on like the general idea of an institution or a project, or more about the specific issue that an institution would like to seek help with?
Oh, that's a really good question. And funnily enough, you've picked on the two sort of thematic areas where there is absolutely a lot of crossover. So what we find actually is that people will be members of both special interest groups, and one is much more established than the other. So the digital one has been around for a bit longer. And actually some of the things that emerged in the discussions within the Digital Innovation SIG came exclusively from the community dealing with clinical research. And therefore it was realized, well, you know, maybe there's more going on there. And so they decided, let's maybe spark one which is only there. So it's kind of, they cross-fertilize each other. But the other thing I would say is, interestingly, I mentioned that they are welcome to stimulate all sorts of activities and what can we support, and if it's possible. And one of the things that we were planning to do before COVID hit, and we are now managing to pick up again, is that these two special interest groups decided there's so much crossover, it'd be really fun to organize a one-day symposium where topics and themes at that crossover area, either highlighting some of the challenges or case studies or solutions of what the issues are, could actually be shared. So in fact, we do have a collaboration going on between these themes. So it's definitely focusing not on an institutional background or an umbrella based, it's the individuals and what they're doing and where their challenges are that will determine where it can actually come forward. Does that answer your question?
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, and obviously you guys have already thought about this, and the wheels are in motion. So that's really great. Thank you.
No, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Any other questions? I actually have one which is quite practical, about just, you mentioned that you have an active online space, I mean, through the website. How do that work? Like, do people exchange directly on the website? How do they find each other? How do they recognize each other? Or, for instance, I guess they create this group because they have found out they have a common interest. So how does that
how does that work? Okay, so the members area, essentially everybody who is a member has access to that part of the website. There is a members directory, so people can actually, within the membership, if you become a member, you agree that you're okay for your name and your institution to be known and shared with or to be accessible and visible to the other members. So people can certainly find each other. Now, there is a messaging capacity, and it tends to happen in small groups. So we use it, or we find people use it in two scenarios. One, there's a kind of a community linked per special interest group. So as an ASTP member, you're in the website, you can be a member of different groups. And then there's a kind of a chat space, chat community per group, as it were. And there's also the possibility, of course, to post something to everybody. So it doesn't have to be into a specific group. And so we find that we're quite surprised. And I have to say, one of our dreams that we haven't managed to realize, but I think we will do in the future, is actually to have an app, to have an ASTP app, which might be more convenient than elements of the website. But in the meantime, we're not there yet. So people do actually use it for that, and they can also pose questions. So there's one of the groups is called the Directors Forum, and so some of the more senior people who've been around for a long time might want to exchange opinions about developing new policy on, I don't know, revenue sharing or something, and they might want to speak to their peers, and so they use it like that. So basically, people do jump into the members area if they have something. But yeah, it's only been running since last summer. We're amazed at how many people actually do use it. The other area that we use it for is for the communities that have been in any of our training courses, because obviously that is rather intensive. Our training courses last about 3 days, more or less. And we've experimented with everybody over the last 12 months. That was 3 days in person. Do people want 3 days online? I'm not so sure. So we've had a really interesting spread, and we've worked out with the different courses what is a nice combination of time on screen, time off screen, and so on. But what's really been lovely about that, when we used to just run our training courses face to face, you'd all come together, we'd be in Barcelona or somewhere, you'd meet your colleagues on the training course, plus probably 2 other training courses, and maybe 100 people for 3 days. You get to know each other, and then you go back, and yeah, you can keep in touch. But one of the things that we've kind of encouraged is that in the members area, that the training course cohort is also a group, and so they can come back, say, a month later, and the trainers will say, hey, let's have a reunion in 2 months and just see, have issues arisen that you learned, have you applied any of the stuff, if you've got issues, do you want to just reconnect? So what we found is that actually it's also quite an easy way for people to stay connected in a group. We're all free to do this. We all have LinkedIn. We all have a million ways of being connected. And that's why I find it reassuringly surprising that actually websites can still provide a useful kind of hub for people. So, but we're still looking to optimize. It's definitely not perfect, and it's come under quite some pressure. That we thought this would be a journey that would go that digital world maybe 5 years from 2 years ago, and it's all concertinaed into 12 months. So it's not perfect. But
that's impressive, because I think it's quite a challenge to keep people active online. And does that, it sounds like it works a bit like a Slack community, like where people can create some kind of sub questions and groups, and you can see who's a member and then have your own discussions. And
they can do that. I mean, I have to say, everybody, like all of you yourselves, you're super busy. This digital world is not an easy one to work in, but at least the capacity is there, and as far as we're concerned at HQ, if only a few people are using it, but if it helps them, you're just as much a member as if 1,000 people were using it. So, it's what fits. And different communities, like to do. So we find some regions are much more not happy, but they're just much more used to doing things remotely. And so they fit in rather well. Whereas we've got all my close neighbors, obviously I live in the Netherlands. Okay, so my neighbors are only like 2 feet away. So, we're used to doing things in person.
Do they kind of like pull the others, those who are more like digital active? Do they motivate the others to engage?
They do a little bit. Yeah, I would definitely say so. Definitely say so. But they need to have a reason to want to be. And that's why I mentioned specifically the special interest groups or the training course cohorts, because they've actually already had a connection with each other. They already know a little bit about who each other is, and they want to stay together. So
yeah. But the training course follow-up online, it's quite good, because it's true that you usually attend it and then you don't really, there's no really follow-up, and then it's an opportunity to keep asking questions or talking about what you learned or heard.
Yeah. So it's certainly something we kind of introduced. It hasn't rolled out yet to all of our training courses, but that's something, again, we're just gauging. Do people want to do that? Are you feeling, does it help? Is it interesting?
And how do you what is your role at the HQ? I mean, you are kind of a driver through the community. You are answering different demands, putting people in contact. How?
Yeah. So okay. So in terms of the connectivity. So apart from traditionally ASTP has always created an HQ with people who were, not me, but others who were real experts in organizing events, and everything was face-to-face. So it was very much about logistics, supporting the different committees, organizing their meetings, organizing all the travel and such like for the events that would take place. So training courses in different parts of Europe, and then our annual conference and our fall meetings. So we had these big events, and we have training events all in person. And what we've discovered, and was always our ambition, was to offer more online. So nothing to do with COVID, but everything to do with the fact that not every organization has a travel budget that will allow more than one, or even indeed any of their team members to physically travel and attend courses. So we know that a lot of the things that we do are interesting, especially for people who don't necessarily have the option to travel. So one of the things that my events team has done over the last few months is a little bit become expert in the logistics of hosting meetings and events online. So we actually do a lot of that ourselves. We partnered with a provider for our annual conference in May, just because it was logistically so large. And also the platforms that were available required a little bit of expertise that we didn't have. But one of the platforms that we've now discovered, I mentioned this idea of the clinical and digital innovation people wanting to run a kind of a one-day thing. We were going to try and do it in person, but we lost quite a lot of time to do that. And I think they're really keen. So we're thinking of doing it digitally, maybe at the very end of this year or early next year. And we found a platform called Airmeet. I don't know, has anybody ever encountered Airmeet? Do you know Remo? Do people know Remo as a network? Okay, so we've got Zoom, which is lovely. And Zoom does have breakout rooms. You can set it and do it in different things. And Teams has a version of that as well. But Airmeet is a platform that we discovered last summer, which is very reasonably priced, which is one of the reasons we love it. But the other reason we love it is that you can actually use it. And it's almost like imagine going into a big conference hall where you've got a room with a stage. So you can do plenary presentations and everybody's there. But actually, you can also shut down the stage, so switch off the plenary screen, and then what appears on the screen is a whole set of tables, physically tables, and everybody can just choose to go and sit at a table. And when you're at the table, you just see the small group of people, so you can see who's at the table. You can preset the size of the tables. It can be for 2, 10, 8, whatever. And so basically it's like a ballroom where you can wander around and sit down. So we use that platform for some of our events where we've got presentation, but we want people to be able to just socialize and chit chat afterwards. And so our events team, coming back to what does HQ do, we just try to make sure that as an organization, we've got access to affordable resources and technology that allow us to do both the face-to-face when we come back to that, as well as our digital world. And, we're going to see if we can do that, because we're non-profit, we're a non-profit organization. And yes, we do a little bit get involved in EU projects and such like, but essentially we generate our income from the activities that we do in our membership. So it kind of works out quite well so far.
I think the hybrid, yes, perfectly, thanks. I think the hybrid events would be the next challenge to
I know you say hybrid. I have to say, can I confess? I think hybrid might be a wee bit of a swear word in my vocabulary. And I say that because, we have discussions about this, and we think face-to-face is great. We think online is great. We think combining, depending on the nature of the event, is going to be very difficult and might dilute the experience for both the face-to-face people and the online people. So for our training purposes, I am discouraging, I have to say, our trainers from talking about hybrid training, where you could bring some people and be in a classroom and everybody else is online, because I think it doesn't work. So that's why I say, amongst friends here, that I think hybrid events, meaning online and face-to-face simultaneously, definitely a little bit of a swear word in my books. On the other hand, we look at our big annual conference, or any big conference, where you can have speakers, and yes, you can have a buzz and an energy, and yes, there are certain things that we could do by bringing people together face to face, but I think we would need to restructure the event so that there was stuff that was face to face, and maybe if some of the face to face, like, is a really brilliant plenary, absolutely, let's record it and make it available to people. So I don't know, what do you guys think? I see some people nodding hybrid, not a good idea, but do you think it's possible? Am I really just, please tell me if I'm out on a limb, am I encouraging people the wrong way, do you think? Sorry, Jimmy, I'll shut up.
We're already 3:30, so we won't have time for a long discussion, but Jimmy.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll do it very fast. I think I agree with you on the hybrid, because the highest common denominator is too low. Then it's very difficult to maintain it. But what I do think, though, is that if you have like a program or a series of events where you could meet once, you could then have 10 online meetings, because then you kind of get all your different social antennas, on the right signal. This is my experience with it. So I think, a combination, and then you can call the whole program a hybrid. But that's the way I seem to think about it.
Yeah, no, that's right. I like that. It's a combination program. Yeah, as opposed to simultaneously trying to be a face-to-face and online. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, you're right. Somebody mentioned the time you're having.
No, but is there any more comment or someone who wants to say something? No? Well, thank you very much. And thanks a lot, Laura, for your time. And I really hope we will see you again in ENRIITC.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, definitely. And open invitation to anybody who's interested in jumping in. Well, I'll keep with Anne-Charlotte and with Madison. We'll just make sure you guys know what's going on. I'll make sure, I think my communications manager, Nolene, should let you know what things are happening. So
yeah, I think there was some interest to join some of the upcoming meetings ASTP is organizing. So let's see if we can do something with the ENRIITC for the ENRIITC
definitely community. That would be really good.
Cool. So thanks a lot, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all next week. We're going to have a very nice testimony from Raffaella Geometrante, who is the general director at Kimaspa Undulators and Permanent Magnet Devices. So it's basically a startup coming from Elettra, a spin-off, and we are really delighted to have some concrete case study to talk with next week. So I hope we will see you all, and I wish you a great week. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.